those of you who do not know me, I'm Dr. Anthony Alphonso. I'm a chiropractor, but I specialize in nutrition, specifically nutrition response testing. I have an advanced certification in nutrition response testing. There's very few of us worldwide that have the mastery level of training that I have. It involved a lot of training, most of everything that I've had to do in Florida, where nutrition response testing, the founder, Dr. Freddie Ulan, has his training facility and actually trains other doctors around the country to do what I do. So a little history about me. I had a lot of unresolved health issues myself, and not only was it with myself, but it was with my family, my wife, and my children. My kids, all my kids are here someplace. My wife is here too somewhere. But anyway, we had some unresolved health issues that were not getting better, and we tried many things. We tried a lot of things allopathically, which would be traditional medicine, and then things that were holistically, chiropractic, acupuncture, other things, other procedures called just various things. And we got some resolution a little bit, but nothing that was really sticking, nothing that really made a whole lot of sense. So as a fluke, I had found out about the nutrition response testing, and when I first heard Dr. Ulan speak, a lot of the things that he said to me, or was saying, and what I was hearing him talk about, made a lot of sense, because he was talking about eating whole foods and how our country's really gotten away from that, and the health has really declined over the last 100 years because people have gotten away from actually eating food, because that's the main problem today. People don't eat food anymore, they eat food products because they're very cheap and they're inexpensive, and makes a lot of profit for the people that are producing these things. So, when I heard him speak, and he said, people years ago were healthier than they are today, and a lot of the conditions that there are today didn't exist. And I didn't really think about it at the time, but you start thinking about it, it makes sense. If you look at old photographs of people from 100 years ago, people look a lot healthier than they do today. Okay, people were much thinner, they were more fit, they were more physically active. We're not as obviously as technologically advanced, but that can kind of be a double-edged sword, because it's got some good sides, but it doesn't on other sides too. So if you look at the trend in the United States, as they've industrialized the food supply, at the end of World War II, really the industrialization of the food supply started. If you look at the industrialization of the food supply on a graph, and then if you look at the there's a correlation of a decline in health overall in this country, and you can see that today. So what happened with healthcare was it started to become more of the original intent of medicine and things and it was actually acute situations, actually fixing bodies and getting people out of acute situations. So that really changed, and now we're in a situation that we're maintaining a lot of disease and illness, not only allopathically but also holistically. As a chiropractor, when chiropractic first started, years ago, when people were getting adjusted, they adjusted. Chiropractic was founded on adjusting the uppermost cervical vertebra. And the idea was it actually took pressure off of the parasympathetic nervous system. The idea was then you take pressure off the parasympathetic nervous system, the body was able to heal itself, because whether they knew it or not at the time, everybody was pretty much eating whole foods. They didn't have to worry about finding cows that ate grass and chickens that ran around outside and ate bugs and worms, because that's what happened with everyone. Okay. So as the change in the industrialization of the food supply happened, really what happened with that was after World War II, when they had all these facilities located around the country that they were using at wartime to make weapons and things like that, and then there wasn't any war going on anymore, so they had to do something with these facilities. So the switch was actually doing things with pesticides, herbicides, things like that. So they really started to industrialize the food supply. So at the time it sounded like a good thing. But as time progressed, like I said, you can really see a change in the overall health of people in this country today. So I tell people, when a new pharmacy pops up in the neighborhood or something, that's not an indication the community is getting healthier. Okay, if you actually think about that, they're not making money selling paper towels and magazines. All the money is made in the back. Okay, so they've made it more and more convenient with these things, with drive-throughs and everything else. That years ago, like this guy here, if they had They had these small pharmacies that the pharmacists actually, you know, made the medications. They actually had some knowledge about things, and it was used in more of an acute situation. There wasn't people lined up for all of these things that people are today. And I don't watch television. We don't have for cable television at least. But when I travel and we watch television and we see it seems like the advertisements on television, either they're ads for pharmaceuticals, and then what happens afterwards is then there's ads for attorneys saying if you have this condition, and if you actually look at all of the side effects of all of the medications that are listed there, if you actually wrote down all of the side effects from all the medications, that's pretty much most of our healthcare crisis, okay? And the problem is the next so-called medical solution is leading to the next medical problem, okay? And then the next solution leads to the next problem, and the next solution leads to the next problem. So if you can see where the trend was going, I could see where it was. I didn't really realize it at the time, but then when I had an observation of this and I looked at my own family and I could see that, wow, this is actually starting to affect me. I'm a holistic practitioner. I'm a chiropractor. And our industry, our profession was founded on the idea of this body's ability to be able to heal itself. And, you know, I wasn't able to heal mine, and my family was falling, and we you know, really checked with a lot of different people, and it wasn't working. We weren't eating as well as I thought that we should, okay, the way that I was educated, until I started finding out about Dr. Euland's work, and it was actually through him that I could, you know, really started to wake me up and open my eyes about really what was going on. So then he came about the process called nutrition response testing. It's an analysis of the body to actually find out if there's any particular imbalances that are preventing that body from being able to heal itself. Okay? And the other thing that he came up with was that he found that there's different stressors that are out there that can really affect an area from healing itself. Okay? One of the big things with one of the stressors we found with my wife was that one of the cesareans she had with the children was actually putting stress on her body's ability to be able to heal her thyroid and her heart. Okay? And she was having these blatant heart and thyroid issues or endocrine issues, and she had, you know, searched a lot of things out medically to try to figure out what was going on. She wasn't getting any solutions. She was just getting possible diagnoses. She was 5 months pregnant with my son in the back there, Anthony at the time, and she went to an endocrinologist, and she said, in between flipping through textbooks, because she could kind of see her doing that in the back, she came back and she kept coming up with, well, you could have Hashimoto's, you could have Cushing's, you could have, I don't really know, you could have thyroid cancer, and she's 5 months pregnant at the time. So she didn't have any of those things, okay? And now I actually think that it was a scar actually putting pressure on her, taking, you know, the tension on her body, confusing her nervous system, preventing the self-healing. At the time when I found out about it, it seemed pretty crazy, but since I've duplicated that in my clinic now many times, it's actually very, you know, it's remarkable. Okay, these are things that were known, have been known in Europe and things for years, but they're not. You got to realize this whole idea today about these bodies being able to heal themselves and eating properly and actually getting the bodies in time before they're completely degraded. It doesn't sell a lot of time. Things in an industry that's maintaining disease and illness. Okay. It just doesn't. I mean, we've gotten away from small farms. We've gotten away from self-sufficiency, where we've got communities that are actually sustainable. You hear a lot of it's about sustainable agriculture, which means somebody has a farm and it's actually sustainable. It means everything that's produced on the farm can be put back into that farm or put into that soil to actually produce something. So if there's cows that are actually on grass and chickens running around, manure that they're producing is actually fertilizing the ground, and then they're producing a product that can actually is actually healthy. Okay? The soil's not contaminated. You maintain that. You actually put something on the soil, so the manure from these animals is actually a blessing instead of a lot of these large facilities today. It's actually toxic waste. Okay, you can't just take manure from a 5,000 cow dairy or hundreds of thousands of chickens and something and just go and spread it on the field. I mean, they're actually, you wouldn't want it that anyway because it's got antibiotics in it, pesticides, herbicides, and everything else that's in there. And then if you start, you can really start understanding the situation that we are today. So I started seeing that, and actually once we I had to go to actually start doing this, to actually method of doing it to actually start for what was going on with us. And so I started seeing the. I wanted to keep going on and on the best that I because I'm a perfectionist. Patients that come in my office, I do not unresolved case fix. Okay. Somebody comes in, and if I know that I can help everything I can to my ability to be able to help that person. Sometimes if they're on medications and things like that, I really can't do a whole lot. I can't do that for medications, but if we can get they're on medications, it's much more if the person gets to the point and they come in and their goal decision whether or not they want to do that, or if they're working with a doctor who's understands that, and they can start seeing that the medications start causing some problems for the person as they start getting healthier, then generally there's a resolution with that. It's not a secret that medications cause lots of harmful side effects. I mean, like I said, just look at the advertisements on television. Okay, I've never met anybody who's been on generally more than 2 medications that actually is healthy. Okay, the images of the people that they actually portray on television, I mean, that's a joke. You know what I mean? You don't see too many people rock climbing or going kayaking that are taking all these medications for what they're doing. People don't look like that, the ones that they're actually there. The actual, in all honesty, the reality of it is the more medications somebody's on, the greater the risk of something else happening to them, or ended up in the emergency room, or more problems. I mean, just think about it. Go to a nursing home, find somebody who's on 15 medications. How's their quality of health? Okay, so then you hear a lot of today what people are saying, well, people are living longer today. To an extent, that's true, and there are situations in medicine where there are miraculous things that are being done to actually save people's lives. That's great. We have a great ability to be able to do that in an acute situation. Somebody has a raging infection or something that's not responding, but generally the reasons for that is because there's so many different mutant strains of bugs that are out there now. They don't respond to the traditional antibiotics like penicillin and these things. I was watching a documentary recently called Fresh, and this farmer who was a hog farmer went to school for agriculture and tried to increase the production of his family farm with all these hogs, and then one day he got bored by a bull or a boar hog, and he ended up getting this infection, and he let it go. Like he said, being the tough guy that he was, he took off his rubber boot, poured the blood out of it, put it back on, and just kept working. Well, in a few days, his leg was so swollen up that he had no choice but to have to go to the emergency room. So they tried every antibiotic possible, and nothing happened. And then his life was saved by one of these new generation drugs or antibiotics or whatever it was. But like he had said, he got infected by a resistant strain of something because of the antibiotic use that had been used on the farm, giving all these pigs and everything. Okay, so we've created a lot of these problems ourselves that we've gotten ourselves into this situation. So anyway, does that make sense so far? What I'm talking about? Just can people see how the food supply is actually, being degraded and things like that? So we're big advocates of supporting local as much as possible, because when you support local, it actually keeps money into the community, and people who are making money locally generally spend the money locally. Okay, it's kind of what's becoming in the agricultural industry is kind of like the Walmart philosophy. Everybody thought that Walmart was great and it's convenient. It is very convenient, very cheap things, but if you go through, pretty much everything's made in China. Okay, people think when a Walmart comes in, oh, it's going to be great, it's going to provide all these jobs and everything else. It's not the case. Okay, what happens is generally small companies, small businesses go out of business because they can't compete with that. Okay, if you're going to get a jar of pickles that they're selling for $2 and Walmart's got it for 97 cents, it's kind of hard to actually compete with that. Okay, there's some really great documentaries on. If anybody has Netflix, we have that. That's our extent of our entertainment. I like to watch the documentaries on there for about $14. Not that I have any connection with Netflix, but for about $14 or whatever it is a month, or I think $7 a month, you can watch all the stuff online. They've got a lot of great documentaries. There's some great movies on there. There's one, like I said, Fresh, and it's Food Incorporated, Food Matters, even though they kind of talk a little bit about vegetarianism, a little bit too much, which I don't agree with. Food Fight, Ingredients, there's some really great ones. And the good thing about that is when you click on one link for like Food Inc. or something, they'll have other documentaries that are similar to that. Okay, but that one that I was talking about, Fresh, is great. It really talks about a lot of good things on there. Okay, so anyway, what we got to the point, getting back to the nutrition response testing, was that we had problems and we didn't know what was going on. Okay, we had symptoms. We had done everything we were supposed to be doing, allopathically, holistically, or we still weren't getting better. Okay, so this whole idea about, Dr. Hewlin had said to me about, I heard him say about treating symptoms. And he said, we're treating symptoms. Even as chiropractors today, somebody comes in. Years ago, somebody would come in regardless of their ailment. They would get adjusted. You would adjust the uppermost cervical vertebra. You align the spine, and basically the body just healed itself. And I've talked a lot, listened to other chiropractors who would, during that time, and they could see the transition themselves, where they started adjusting more and more segments of the spine to compensate for the areas that were weak. So they had to start doing the other cervical vertebra, then the thoracics and the lumbar spine, to the point now that if you went into to a chiropractor and you had low back pain, they said, well, I think I'm going to adjust your uppermost cervical vertebra. People would look at them like, what are you crazy? Because they don't understand that. They're like, no, the pain's not here, it's here, right? But then the idea that if you're getting away from that idea of treating symptoms and you look at the body as it being as complicated as, and understand that when it comes to symptoms, anything can cause anything, okay? That's like the most important thing you could probably take away from this, is that the idea that anything can cause anything, okay? So things like if somebody's got low back pain, but if they have mercury, that the first thing that shows up in their thyroid, or chlorine, or pesticides, anything, that's what the body wants to handle first, okay? So when somebody comes in, or through the nutrition response testing, it's an analysis of the body to find out why it's not functioning. And to the level that we do it at, that I do it at, the advanced training, it goes way beyond the basic muscle testing. So I hear a lot of people say, I went to so-and-so, or I go to so-and-so, or somebody does muscle testing. Believe me, it's not the same. Because I thought I was pretty cocky when I knew it at a basic level, and I'm almost embarrassed what I put some of my patients through at a basic level of what I know now. Okay, as far as cutting right to the chase, as far as what's wrong with these people and cutting down on their programs so they're on minimal supplementation. We do a lot in the office, which is extremely important, about stressing the importance of eating well. Okay, we use whole food supplements, primarily standard process. Some other companies that are top of the line. These supplements that I use and the information I have, it's not anything that I came up with. It's what I learned from Dr. Hewlin, who's done the clinical research, who said, if you do these things in this order and duplicate this, you're going to have nearly 100% success if you take the patients that you know you can help. Okay, it's generally not effective. Not that it isn't effective. Not that we can't help people who've got pathological conditions, but generally it's for the person who's out there that's in this holding pattern of they don't feel well, like my wife. You look at things medically. You don't have a disease. You don't have cancer. You don't have something yet, but blood work and everything looks okay, but they say, well, we'll just keep our eye on this and hopefully nothing severe happens until we see you again. So that's the population of people that we're looking to grasp, is somebody who's, hopefully not yet medicated or going down the wrong road, hasn't had organs removed. And if we can get that person and then find these things that they're not looking for, medically, those are the ones we have the greatest success with. Because you have to realize the medical tests that are out there, they're designed to find, identify, and treat disease. Okay, either drug it or remove it surgically. That's pretty much what it is. It's not looking for what most of the people that are out there. Everybody has got a disease process brewing inside them. Just most people don't know that at all. Okay, so it's much easier to help find the disease process and help the body reverse that and heal itself. Okay, as opposed to waiting until the disease is actually there. Okay, I don't like people coming into the clinic and they come in because they're at the end of their medical rope, and the only reason they're coming to me is because they got a family member dragging them in. Otherwise, they don't want to be there. Because generally, with those cases, what happens is they have no interest in overall wellness. They're scared for their lives. They've tried everything. Okay, and then most of their mindset is, well, we'll try it for 3 or 4 months and see what happens, and that's just completely unrealistic. Okay, so we're looking for people who are understand that it's a lifestyle. It's not a quick fix. Okay, we generally see people once a week for at least 6 weeks. We move them out if we can, but depending on how they're eating. A lot of people, like I said, our biggest struggle when we have patients come in is just getting to understand what food is. Okay, people are terrified about eating bacon and eggs. The word cholesterol has become like a curse word. Okay, like it's some evil thing that is out there and going to make us all die of, all these horrible things and heart disease. And the truth of that is the more people have avoiding cholesterol, foods like bacon and eggs and taking statin drugs and everything else, heart disease has actually increased. It hasn't decreased. Okay. I just had a patient tell me recently that one of her friends had just had a physical and everything, had a clean bill of health, everything was fine. And the guy's in his 60s, I think, right? Isn't that guy probably in his 60s? He's playing hockey, drops to one knee, goes to the other knee. Fortunately, there was somebody there to be able to intervene, and it was a medic or something. But anyway, they got him in. The guy had, what did she have? 8 blockages? He had 8 blockages. It had never been found out. His cholesterol, wasn't taking any statin drugs, his cholesterol was 120. Okay? So, it's just a myth, but he had just been evaluated and said, hey, everything's okay. He had 8 blockages, one 100%, one 80%, whatever, but, the guy didn't eat well, he smoked, did other things, but, it's not a basis of cholesterol. Do the research about that. The other advocate that we are is the Weston A. Price Foundation. It's a great organization. Their website is westonaprice.org. I think it's WAPF.org. That's a good organization to look at. There's a ton of good information on that website. So anyway, it's WAPF.org. So anyway, I'm very blessed to be able to do what I do because I help a lot of people, but I help my family and myself. I can't picture my life without what I'm doing now because before we didn't have any direction. I had no idea what it was. As far as having symptoms and not treating the symptoms, actually treating the body as a whole, letting the body heal itself. These bodies have got a tremendous ability to be able to heal itself if you can give it what it needs. They've been around for thousands of years. And in all realistically, the human body today are not the same they were thousands of years ago, especially men. Men are not anywhere near physically what we were years ago. Which is absolutely, there's no comparison. If you had a man from 500 years ago, think about these people in medieval times, a knight whose whole job was protecting the king and wearing, 100-pound suit of armor and having all these, battle instruments. These guys were trained when they were little kids to that point. Their whole purpose was protecting the king. Those people were physically superior to any man today. They would, with a backhand, would probably knock me across the room. There's just incredible strength of these people. We have been degraded because of, we're not physically active anymore, but the food supply is the main thing. You know what I mean? That's the biggest thing. So anyway, we're up against the body today that just eating well is not going to do it. Okay, we hear that a lot. We hear that, if I just eat well, things will be okay. Most of these bodies have been so degraded to the point that they need something in order to jumpstart them, to give them something that's going to get them moving in the right direction. So you need a system of analyzing the body in order to do that. The best system that we found is nutrition response testing, because it's precision, accuracy to find out exactly what that body needs at that point in time to get it moving in the right direction, with highest quality supplements that are available, okay, that test specifically for that person. And that's the other thing that we do. It's not a one-size-fits-all for each patient. Everybody's on their own individual design clinical nutrition program. It's also referred to as design clinical nutrition. Okay, it's like a tailor-made suit. Somebody comes in and might have 10 people who have migraine headaches, but they're all on different supplements and they all have different, things going on with them that's actually leading to them having those symptoms. Somebody might have heavy metals from metal fillings in their mouth. Somebody might have chlorine from swimming in pools or taking chlorinated showers. Somebody might have pesticides. Somebody might have a scar. Somebody might have straight nutritional deficiencies. And many of these things aren't ever affecting the head directly, where the area of symptom is. Okay, some of these things that come in, Dr. Ewan, when I had heard him talk, and then this other doctor that works with him, Dr. Puskar, he made the great statement. He said, when you have a patient that comes in, it's almost like it's like Christmas time, and you're opening a gift, and you have no idea what's going on. We kind of play this game in the office a little. When somebody comes in, we're looking at their health history, and you're like, what do you think's wrong with them, right? Our staff will talk about, I think it's this, and generally we're wrong. I had somebody come in the other day, the guy could barely function, and I'm thinking, must be his adrenal glands, it must be this, it might be this. He had chlorine toxicity. Okay, put him on one supplement, help him get rid of the chlorine and have him aware of his source of chlorine. And within a couple of days, he called in. He's already starting to feel 10 times better, okay, just by doing that, because he was taking tons of supplements that he didn't even know that he needed. And actually, in some cases, they were actually causing him more problems, okay, because a lot of these things today, if they're not food-based, they're actually stimulating the body into trying to do something. You have to, medications, a lot of people don't realize how medications work. Medications will bypass the nervous system through a direct chemical intervention to suppress a symptom or reduce pain. That's how drugs work. Some of the synthetic vitamins, they're called nutraceuticals. They work in a similar way. They're just not as toxic. Okay, so they don't have as much of harmful side effects as the medications do, but they're still kind of triggering, trying to trick the body into do something that it's not really supposed to be doing on its own. That's why we're big advocates of whole foods as much as we can. The idea of actually giving the body what it needs to actually start getting it into this self-healing state. Okay, so what I'm going to do, let's see how I'm doing for time. I'm not doing too bad. I think what else I wanted to say. Okay, the other thing is, because everything that I recommend with patients, okay, it's based on the clinical, you hear all these things today about, well, the research says this, the research says that. We do research in our clinic every single day, okay? And most of the research where it's all kept here in my head. So when patients come in here, when people come into our clinic, you could ask the staff or some of our patients, sometimes when they come in and they have these issues, we know that we can help that person, because we just expect as a pleasant side effect when somebody comes into the clinic, if we can get to them time, there's no question that they're not going to get better, okay? And if you can get to that person before they're... When I have a patient that comes in who is on no medications, they still have all of their organs, right? We're like clicking our heels, right? Because we're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be like, we start taking kind of like bets in the office, like how soon they're going to start feeling better, okay? I mean, that's what it is. What we found is the more meds somebody's on, or the more organs they've had tampered with or removed, you've got to be realistic with them and say, look, we don't really know what's going to happen. Let's see it for 3 months and see what goes on. And during that time, we're looking at their diet and looking at, we have them fill out diet sheets and then bring them in. They absolutely have to do that. Okay. The problem with a lot of holistic doctors today is, unfortunately, they take everyone. You can't help everyone. And when you have patients come in, you can't. One of the most important things I learned in chiropractic college is one of the doctors had told me, he said, don't let the inmates run the asylum. Okay? You can't have people come in and tell you what they're going to do. Well, don't eat cakes, cookies, candies, and ice cream. Well, that's all I eat is cakes, cookies, candies, and ice cream. Well, you're not going to get better. Okay? That's what I can tell you. I mean, people are addicted. There's tons of people that are addicted to sugar, and you have to take that in consideration. So you have to gradiently get them off of these things. But if somebody... Like I said, based on our clinical experience, what I've been taught, we have a very high level of success. It's nearly 100% if we take patients that we know we can help. So when somebody comes in and we know if the person does A, B, and C, they're going to have success. That's what we encourage them to do. Everything that we're doing is based on our own clinical experience in the office and successes. It's not based on what I read in a book and what so-and-so recommends that has an MD, PhD from whatever, Ivy League college. Okay? It's based on what we see in the office with many patients that had this symptom before or this diagnosis, and we handle the situation this way, and then as a pleasant side effect, this goes away. We keep a tally in the beginning of all of their health history, everything they can think of, because generally in about 6 months to a year, when we revisit that with the patient, a lot of times patients will forget why the hell they even came into the office to begin with. Okay? I had a patient the other day who came in, was telling me and sometimes that happens with me. And not to be like downplaying it, but like I said, I expect people to come in there. If they come in with a, fibromyalgia, we not only expect their fibromyalgia is going to improve, but I expect when they get a blood report from the doctor, they're going to have better heart function, they're going to have better kidney function, they're going to... I had a patient the other day who's been dealing with us for about 6 months. He came in he had to stop his work because he was polymyalgia rheumatic or something. Anyway, it's just pain all over the body. Okay, and so he's on prednisone. He's up to 25 milligrams of prednisone. His doctor was able to get him down to he's down to 6 milligrams. His pain is virtually gone. And then he had told me, he says, oh, by the way, I went to the cardiologist, and he said, I just wanted to tell you that my EKG was perfect. And I was like, what's wrong with your heart? And he goes, well, didn't I tell you? He goes, look, I had a heart attack in 2002. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, but I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, well, of course his heart should get better, okay? But the cardiologist that he was talking to was flabbergasted that his EKG had improved. He hadn't saw that, right? Said, what have you done? So he told him what he was doing, and, the doctor actually agreed with him. Couldn't disagree with him. He said, what you're doing is working. Keep it up. He goes, the way that you're telling me to eat, my wife has actually been eating in a similar way, and she's doing the best she ever has either. So, see, it's starting to penetrate the medical profession too, because a lot of the doctors that are out there, medical professionals, they're not inherently bad. They don't want to try to do harm to their patients. They just don't know what they don't know. They're doing what they're taught. It's just like me when I was a chiropractor. I was taught to do chiropractic a certain way. You do this, follow these protocols, and they should get better. And if they don't, you send them out or whatever. But it doesn't always work that way. It's not a level playing field anymore because there's so many things that are coming at us. Okay, that's why we expect these things. We expect that. We expect. We routinely have people come in. Their situation is they have heart issues, or they're scared about their cholesterol or whatever and everything else, and we start getting them eating full-fat foods, grass-fed meats, chickens from eggs that run around outside and eat bugs and worms. They're terrified in the beginning. It's funny because they're terrified. You mean I can have butter? You mean I can have eggs? So yeah, sure, that's great. So they start doing it, and they're like, oh, I'm going to have my cholesterol checked. I'm really worried about this. And I had one of my patients said, he came in and he said, I can't believe it. He goes, all of my blood work's perfect. He goes, I was eating Cheerios that I hated for years, thinking I was going to lower my cholesterol. And he goes, now my cholesterol and all my blood work is perfect. I've been eating bacon and eggs every day. I've been eating venison. I've been eating all this red meat and everything else. And he goes, I thought when I was in there, I thought I was going to have to take these are his words, he said, I thought I'd have to take a coat hanger inside my arteries to declog them. And everything was perfect. His cholesterol was perfect, his LDLs, his HDLs, his triglycerides, everything. He feels fantastic. He wasn't even coming in for that. He was coming in for a chronic fatigue situation, okay, which is actually is able to go off of the medication he had been on for 15 years. He actually feels, better now than he ever has, okay, because we actually got to the real root cause of what's going on with him, which is the nutrition response testing, correcting his diet, and he's fine. He's actually, the guy's happy now because he's not killing himself sitting down, oh, Cheerios again, I got to eat Cheerios, he's sitting down, he's having bacon and eggs, and he's enjoying that. Okay, so anyway, how am I doing for time? All right, I'm going to demonstrate the nutrition response testing now. So, if Gay, if you could come up here real quick. So I'm going to have Gay. Gay is our works in our office, and she's a lot of times my right hand man. And she's great. She's also a patient. She's done well, and she's lives the lifestyle. This woman actually, she keeps me in check, right? With eating. All right. So anyway, we're gonna explain the nutrition response test. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna demonstrate this, and if anybody has any questions, the last 15 minutes or so, I'm just gonna take questions from the audience. So why is it called nutrition response testing? So we use a muscle test. And when I was in chiropractic college and I heard about muscle testing and saw it, I was very turned off by it because most of the people that I knew did muscle testing were kind of weirdos, okay? They just looked like weirdos, and most of them were weirdos. That really turned me off, but it's actually very effective, but all we do is actually press on the arm, just like this, so that the arm locks. The thing is, a lot of times when people do muscle testing, and they say, yeah, I've been muscle tested before, and you go to test them, they start and their arm's up here. It's like a wrestling match. I'm like, okay, maximum pressure, and I push this way, and she's pushing up toward, it isn't that. It's very, 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 very subtle. All it is it's just a press on the arm so you feel that arm lock. Okay, it's like pressing a piano key down so the arm actually, press the piano key down, it stops. That's what you're looking at, just that lock. So you can do, so that's what we're looking for, and you can easily do this with a patient, and you just keep doing this in order for them to do it. You can actually calibrate them. One side of this finger will cause the arm to lock, and then one side will cause this arm to go weak. So if you go beyond this point when you get muscle tested or you're muscle testing somebody, this is where you end up running into failure because the person doesn't get it. Okay, and then you kind of lost them. Sometimes we do something else in the office if you can't test the patient, or with children. We use an indirect tester, it's called. Somebody comes in, they can't hold their arm up. What we do is I have Gay come in, and if this woman was being tested, Gay would hold her hand, and I would press on Gay's arm, check her, and use her as an extension cord. That's how I check all my kids. I have to laugh because all these other little boys are hearing kids, and the only one that's asleep is my son in the back room. So see, that's okay, son. Just keep taking a snooze back there. That's all right. Chris, he hears this all the time. He's like, I've heard this talk 100 times before. Why don't he? I can't believe he's up there telling everybody this. So anyway, that's classic. All right. So anyway, that's the key, and that's the other thing. A lot of times with the muscle testing, the person doesn't get it. I've had people come in and we go to muscle test them, and you're explaining this, and they're like, "Wow." I'm like, "What's wrong?" Like, I've never had anybody explain this to me, because when I first did this, I didn't. It's very difficult to get to this point as a doctor to get the testing down, and as a patient in order to see it. Okay, so if you go beyond this point and either the doctor's not getting it or the patient's not getting it, it's not good. Okay, so anyway, if you get to this point, that's all we're looking for, and then we actually check reflexes. So say Gay comes into me and her main complaints are right shoulder pain, neck pain, and she's got a pain right here. Okay, and when she eats her 79-cent eggs in the morning, it's killing her right here. Okay, so she doesn't know what that is. It's actually gallbladder reflex right in here. Okay, so we come in here and we check her, and so she starts with this complaint. So we check here. So we're going to the area that she's complaining, and then this arm is going to go weak. It's actually a short circuit. Okay, picture this like you're looking for a short. Okay, or if you had a fuse. Okay, and if you had the right fuse in order to light this thing up, if you put the right one on, it comes off. If you put the wrong one on, it doesn't work. Okay, so in this case, though, you're basically looking for a short. So how does this work? So if she was experiencing hypothermia in the middle of winter, say she was out in the lake freezing, body's got to start determining what to sacrifice so the body can live. Okay, so the first thing you're going to have is the most distal things from your body, so toes, fingers, hands, but the last thing that would go would be the core organs. That's how somebody can be a quadriplegic and still be alive. Okay, it's function, everything else, because you haven't affected the major organs in the central nervous system, your brain, spinal cord, and nerves. So if I'm pressing here and we're checking these things, this reflex of the body's like, okay, that's a little more important than this, so it lets this go. But say I get to her gallbladder, and then this goes weak, and then she's got neck pain, and this goes weak, but actually she doesn't even know it, but when I go to her thyroid right here, this goes weak, okay? And then we do some other testing that would actually prioritize and would be telling me what the main thing is that the body wants to handle, okay? So it actually comes up with her thyroid, and she says to me, well, I went to the doctor, and I've had a thyroid test, and everything's okay with my thyroid. And that's when I say, well, that's great, okay, because I know that they're looking for disease and pathology. We're looking for nutritional deficiencies and or environmental stresses that are preventing those areas from utilizing nutrition. So that's very important. Does everybody get that? Okay. Medical professions looking generally for diseases and pathologies. We're looking for things that's in the disease process that hasn't progressed into the state of disease yet. Okay. So say we find out that the testing goes beyond this in the office to the level we do it at. But for simplicity's sake, I'm trying to keep this as simple for people who haven't seen it before to kind of understand it. So we identified the thyroid's the main thing, and now we're going to start checking nutritional support for her thyroid. So we're going to put the supplements in her hand, and we're going to check this. And if the arm goes weak, it's not, the body doesn't want it. If it goes strong, it doesn't want it. So this one's weak. And then we get to this one over here. And we check this, and we get a locking arm now on this, okay? So her body's saying that's something that it actually wants, okay? How this works, people say, well, how does that work when it goes through the glass? It's resonating. Your body is actually resonating with something. If it's close enough, either something it resonates with or resonates against, okay? The same idea that you can feel the sunlight from the sun, even though it's however many miles away. Through a pane of glass, you can still feel the warmth, okay? The same thing if you took something like white sugar, so say she's a sugar addict and she comes in, you put some white sugar on her, muscle test for it, her arms are going to go weak, okay? That's just how it is. The body's. You could take an organic egg that's from a chicken that's running around outside eating bugs and worms and put it in her hand, and you like, it's really strong. You take like a 79 cent a dozen egg from a concentration camp, chicken house, and put it in her hand, and it goes weak. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's like amazing, how these things work. You know, it's just because you can feel it. The patient can feel it. Like you put the right supplement in their hand, like, wow, it's really strong. I can really see that. Okay. All right. So does everybody get that? Is everybody wrapping their minds around that? Is anybody wigged out that this is crazy or anything yet? No. Okay. Good. Okay. So I guess if anybody wanted to get screened, we're going to check a couple of people, I guess. That was the idea. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer some questions in a bit, but before we do that, I got plenty of time. We're going to run an initial visit in the office is generally $120, but if somebody sets up an appointment today, it would be $80 instead of $120, so you'd save $40. Okay? All right, so what I'm going to do now is just answer any questions if anybody has any questions. Any questions from anybody? Yes.
You're a chiropractor, right?
Correct. Yeah, but I do chiropractic secondary to nutrition, and that's
I go to a
yeah.
chiropractor once a month, and when I'm getting at this, people who go into the making adjustment, he doesn't really know what's causing my low back problem.
Yeah, I mean the way that I look at it, the reason I stopped doing primary is because what I know now. When I was adjusting, I didn't think anything, for that. It was like not help some people get better for come back. That was okay, and then you're like, it's all this stress and everything else. But once I started understanding how the body works and that the diet and everything else, now doing the nutrition response testing, I'm actually helping more musculoskeletal complaints by doing the nutrition response testing than I ever did as a chiropractor. A lot of my patients all adjust. Basically, they ask me, and I love chiropractic. When I'm chiropractic, I just love it. But I like doing it in a case where the body's going to really most benefit from it. So a lot of patients get adjusted maybe like once a month, generally because it feels good. It feels good if people are active and they've got things. I'm not into the whole adjusting somebody 3 times a week for 3 months and 500 times a year, whatever it is. And not that that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because it'll help people keep them out of the medical circuit a little bit more, because it keeps breaking up that disease process from progressing. But if somebody really doesn't want to, be adjusted that much, and I'd rather, handle the overall what's going on, and then be able to help the person so that not only as a side effect their neck pain goes away, but also, they lose weight. Their heart condition, their heart, becomes better. Their overall health becomes better, and then we like to kind of get people into this phase where it's pretty much maintenance. It's wellness. When I say wellness for people, I mean, we expect somebody to be really well, like nothing's there. Like we joke about it, like somebody's coming in, and we had some 80-year-olds or some patients of ours that come in the other day, and we're like, is there anything wrong? There's no medications, doing great, everything is fine with him, and he's like, yeah, I got a little bit of dry skin here on the side of my face when I shave. It gets a little irritated. Is there anything? So, it's kind of like, I got a really bad hangnail that's really painful. Do you think you could do anything? That's my idea of what wellness should be with people, okay? Not that, because the other big thing today is there's a big confusion between the word common and normal that's used in our healthcare system. So you go to the doctor and say, well, doc, I go to the bathroom once every 5 days. Is that normal? I do the same thing. You know what I mean? That's not normal. That's common, because there's many people today that have the situation. You know what I mean? It's not common. Waking up every morning with a headache is not common, or back pain, or all these crazy things that are going on. These aren't common. They're not normal things. They're common. Okay. All right. Does that make sense? So